Revealing the ego is challenging. Naturally, we tend to overcomplicate simple truths about what the ego is and how to expose it. The ego masks and hides, but through our relationships, we begin to identify hidden truths about who we are and why we think the way we do. Let's begin by understanding this thinking mechanism that developed over our journey of evolution. Let's explore this thinking mechanism by looking at these three factors that shape who we are and how our thoughts can interfere with our true selves. Inheritance. We inherit instincts and fears that helped our ancestors survive. For example, many people today have more fears than others. Some people are scared of heights, which likely developed to keep early humans safe from dangerous falls. Similarly, fears of the dark can be traced back to times when night was filled with unseen predators and threats. These inherited traits still affect our actions, sometimes causing us to react instinctively, even when there's no real danger. Our inherited fears can influence how we move through the world, sometimes limiting us unnecessarily. While fears have their importance, they also have no limits. They can form into illusionary dangers that are simply made up. Mechanical thinking. Much of our thinking is automatic and deeply rooted in our upbringing. This type of thinking occurs without us realizing it, influenced by our environment, family behaviors, bad habits, and attitudes we observed as children. For instance, some may grow up tolerating abusive or toxic behaviors simply because these behaviors are familiar and thought of as normal. Even if they're wrong, they became so deeply ingrained that we often don't recognize them as harmful. This automatic thinking shapes our reactions and choices, often without conscious awareness, locking us into a pattern that may not serve us. Conscious conditioning. We also adopt certain beliefs and biases as truths, often without questioning them. These beliefs might come from family traditions, cultural norms, society values. We tend to accept these ideas because they're reinforced by the people around us, including those we respect and trust. Over time, these consciously held beliefs became a part of our identity, shaping our perceptions and behaviors. This type of conditioning can make it difficult to distinguish between what we truly believe and what we've simply been taught to accept as a fact. Why is it so important to become aware of this? The ego constantly seeks security, pulling us from the present moment into worries about the future or regrets from the past. Most of our suffering isn't due to real threats, but to the stories our thoughts create. This is especially evident in our relationships, where the ego often reveals itself. Our interactions with others can be a mirror, showing us where our insecurities lie and how our conditioned thoughts can affect our reactions. Imagine being alone in a room, feeling deep suffering. Isn't it your own thoughts causing this pain? Of course, there are real dangers and problems we all face. But to distinguish between real dangers and illusionary problems is to respond to the present moment, not to react to this auto-thinking mechanism. Relationships can be a powerful tool for self-reflection. They allow us to see how the ego operates, whether through defensiveness, fear, or needing validation, bringing awareness to those moments where the ego pulls us away from genuine connection. The ego is part of who we are, but we must be aware so that when it goes off into all potential fears, we bring ourselves back to the facts of the real moment. Becoming aware of this process is like shining a light on the ego's patterns. When we recognize that most of our worries are automatic and conditioned, we can see that we're actually okay in the moment. The ego constantly pulls us away from the present, but awareness allows us to see through its illusions. Thoughts are just repeated conditioning, automatically playing out, making us servants to this constant fear creator. By observing, we no longer give power to the ego, no longer fighting an inner enemy, but instead moving past these primitive fears and letting go of the mental games that hold us back. Most suffering comes from this lack of awareness. The reason I said this is simple is because it's not more action that's needed. In fact, it's inaction that dissolves these fears. Sitting with your thoughts and paying attention reveals this mechanical thinking process taking place. Instead of resisting and fighting, simply observe. And this clarity will reveal the unnecessary beliefs we cling to. While the ego has its place, if left unchecked, it can rob us of the present moment by convincing us that happiness lies elsewhere. It's essential to know when to think and when to simply be present. A simple but effective mantra is, it is what it is, and what will be, will be. These words are true and can help ground you to what is, without any illusions that distort the senses. By accepting this fact and reminding yourself, you can stay grounded. Remember, life is a dance, and we must learn to dance with it. Finding balance and accepting what is creates harmony. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to share your thoughts on the ego, I love to read and respond to your comments. Please check out my next video. I'll be posting once a week. Stay true.